Hello, and welcome back to the Unfuck Your Money Show. I'm your host, Nadine Zamot. Before we dive in today, I would like to say a massive thank you for all the pouring love and amazing feedback that you have shared with me about my last episode. So, whenever you share an episode on your Instagram stories or when you forward the episode links to your friends, that means the world to me. So thank you so very much. So today's episode was inspired by staring at the full moon over the weekend. I was hit with this big download and it felt so timely and so needed right now. So at the time that night, I jumped on my WhatsApp CFA group and I shared it with my CFA students, and it resonated with them so much that I decided to hop on the mic, hit record, and share it with you too. Share this message that came to me that night with you right now. So here's the thing: if you are feeling weird, or like you cannot seem to shake off a feeling of unhappiness, if you are having days where you are feeling more off than on, or if you're feeling angry or even cheated right now, it's not personal, it's global. No one in their right mind can be fully happy right now unless you live under a rock and you're oblivious to what's going on in the world right now. Then, if that's you, good for you. Sometimes, honestly, ignorance can be pure bliss. But if you are here with us now, then you are most likely aware that the world feels pretty rough at the moment. Humanity is going through a rough patch. Let's just put it this way: there is death everywhere. Inequality feels even worse. Inequality and unfairness, and everything just feels so expensive, and consumerism is wrecking our earth. There is a global sense of unhappiness and uncertainty and even anger. I am experiencing this firsthand myself, and I'm seeing this in my clients and within the communities that I'm part of. In my opinion, this has been the root cause of consumerism these days. Okay, I'm about to offer you my perspective on this because this is a new trend that I'm seeing right now with people online and with clients and even with myself. So, as a collective, as humans, right, we much prefer to feel happy than sad or angry, right? I'm sure you agree with that. Negative emotions like anger, sadness, grief, disgust, they are unpleasant to have, and even sometimes they are socially unacceptable. No one wants to be known as that angry person, right? So, if we believe that negative emotions are the enemy, then whether it's conscious or not, we would do anything to get rid of them or to distract ourselves from them, right? Again, this is sometimes unconscious. But here's the thing: I think that anger, grief, and disgust are pretty appropriate emotions to have right now. I mean, sorry, but if you are seeing and witnessing all these atrocities and you are fine, then perhaps there's a worry there. We're all angry. We all feel like we've been cheated from seeing all the horror in the world, regardless of, well, wherever you are, whichever side you're on. I think it's actually a good sign if you're angry or if you're sad or if you feel disgusted. You're entitled to feel these emotions. It's okay. I personally will give you full permission and support. While these emotions are welcome and they are normal and appropriate, we don't want them to take over our lives. But when we ignore them or when we don't accept that they're there, when we deny that they are there, they will become the unconscious driver to all our behaviors. And here's the other thing that I teach in my programs about emotions. When we experience an emotion that feels confusing or unacceptable, our very smart psyche will do anything and everything to distract us from it. So, we are shopping to distract ourselves from anger. We are shopping to distract ourselves from the sadness that we are feeling. Okay. So, because we are feeling this, persistent sadness and anger and all these negative emotions, we're also on this, like, we feel like we need to continuously fix ourselves. So, this, like, take this episode as like, if you're feeling this way, You're normal, you're a human. Okay, this is not because you haven't fixed or healed yourself enough. All right. Um, so this is the trend that I'm witnessing at the moment. I think years ago, people shopped because they were bored. Now we are shopping to distract ourselves from what's happening. We're shopping to distract ourselves from the anger and the helplessness that and the sadness and the grief that we are all feeling. Okay, I have been chatting to some community members on Instagram this weekend about this new documentary, Buy Now. Have you? I don't know if you've watched it. I haven't. It's on my list. I love that mainstream networking, streaming services are sharing a documentary about this. But so many of my community members said that they have been aware of these issues, and but that documentary left them feeling rather helpless. Okay, so let's talk about what we can do as individuals about consumerism. Okay, so it's true that we can't save the world, but we could do something about it. Okay, we can do something instead of shop. And by the way, I'm not against shopping. Okay, I'll be talking more about that in a second. So, if the root cause of shopping these days is our sadness and our anger, two perfectly acceptable and perfectly appropriate human emotions, then the first step is usually awareness, right? Then accepting these emotions and learning how to process them. So, how do we process emotions, whether they're negative or positive? In somatic experiencing, anger is usually a communication from our bodies that we need better boundaries. So if you and I were in a somatic experiencing session together now, we will practice giving the emotion space. Okay. With this comes a feeling or an inner knowing of what this emotion needs to be expressed and processed, right? So if you and me are sitting down and we're processing this together, we'll give it space. And information will emerge. It's not something that I control or you control. There's like we give space for emotions, for the body, for the nervous system to tell us what it needs, and this will guide us further. Okay, so this is something that you could usually do with me if you ever want to get to the root cause of your shopping or any other harmful or unhelpful money pattern that you have. Somatic experiencing generally isn't something that you can do on your own. There is another tool that I love using, which works really well when you are on a self healing journey, and that is the change triangle. The triangle is one of the tools that I use. It's a practical tool. It's a practical tool. Oh gosh, I'm just slurring my words here. It's a practical tool for identifying and processing emotions to get to that space where we have more emotional balance and well-being. I learned this tool from Hilary Jacobs Hendel, who wrote a great book about it called It's Not Always Depression. This would be my go-to book recommendation for emotional literacy. So yeah, definitely a good book to borrow from the library, for example. So the first thing is obviously recognizing and maybe accepting. I know that accepting might be a little bit hard, but recognizing and accepting that there is some anger or sadness or disgust or whatever icky feeling that icky emotion that you're perhaps experiencing right now. So, what I would do here, what I would tell you to do is to pause, name what you are feeling. For example, I am angry right now. Then drop into your body because our emotions they all originate from the body. When we slow down and connect with our body, we process the emotions rather than intellectualize them. So right now, when as we pause and we tap into the body, this is where I would say breathe. Okay, we breathe here to slow things down. I need to slow things down because my analytical brain will always want to jump to conclusions. So the breath here is a very important tool. After that, I would pay attention to any physical sensations that are associated with the emotions. Usually anger feels like tightness in the chest, clenching in the jaws, and my fists, like my hands, wrap up in fists as well. Then I would say validate the emotions. Don't judge the emotion. Don't judge yourself for having the emotion. Remind yourself that emotions are natural. Okay, accept them. Don't resist them. I know it's easier said than done. But if you have a mammalian body, then anger is going to be part of your experience, right? Imagine a little like if you have a dog or a cat, and that animal, that pet, has children, has little pups, you would imagine that your dog, like I have Arby, if she had babies, she would be so protective of them, and that would be expressed as boundaries and anger. So these things are quite visceral and important to our experience. Okay, with sadness. Sorry, let me just go back to anger. So for me, I like to process anger or express the anger by pushing a wall or punching a pillow. Okay, it's awesome to do that so that anger does not turn towards, like, doesn't turn inwards, let's say, and drives me to do things from a place of anger, or to distract myself from that anger, aka spend money mindlessly. Okay, so first thing we talked about is recognizing it, pausing, breathing, dropping into the body, then expressing it. Okay, so anger, pushing a wall, punching a pillow, screaming into a pillow, that all works. Sadness, usually what helps me, I cry. Here's the thing: 99% of the time, I find that sadness and grief are always hand in hand. There's always sadness underneath my grief. No, hang on. There's always sadness and grief underneath my anger. A lot of people, it's the opposite. Underneath their sadness or their grief, there's always anger. Okay. So it depends on which emotion you are more comfortable with. A lot of times with women, for example, it's much more socially acceptable for us to be sad rather than angry, right? So usually when I help a client process sadness, there's anger underneath. Crying is good for the soul. I personally find so much clarity after a good cry. It is usually after we process an emotion do we try to understand its underlying need. I see most people do the opposite. Don't do that. The underlying need can sometimes be something that we cannot control, unfortunately. Like I was talking about watching this movie by now, or watching the news. It's, the underlying need is for this to stop, but sometimes we cannot control it. Instead of feeling helpless, I am going to tell you what you can actually do. I strongly believe that the medicine right now, in this day and age, for what is happening is four things: community, creativity, nature, and that's something one of my clients added to the list: slowness. Okay, community, creativity, nature, and slowness. The opposite of negativity is not positivity, it's creativity. The opposite of pessimism is not positivity, it's resilience. Community, creativity, and nature, they're not distractors like shopping, for example. They are resilience builders. So, to turn a negative situation into a creative avenue, we do need a sense of safety, right? We do need to connect with deeper meaning from deep inside. But call me crazy, maybe I am a little bit, but I do believe that what we can do on an individual level to curb our consumerism right now is these four things. Okay, community, creativity, nature, and slowness. So let me share how I'm going to be putting these four things into practice. Okay. I don't really like, I love values. I love these things, but sometimes they feel like abstract concepts. And I just want to kind of make them more grounded for you here in this episode. Okay. So, um, think about something like, now I'm recording this, it's December 2024, we're going into the new year. This is usually a time where people decide to do new things, so that could be a good theme, right? If not, if you're listening to this in middle of June on some other year, it still applies. Think about something that has piqued your interest for a while, something like a topic that you want to nerd out about, or a hobby or an activity, for example dancing, or reading about the indigenous history of the land that you're living on at the moment. Anything that you're curious about. Make time to pursue it. You don't need money at this moment to pursue it at this stage of what I'm talking about. But if you feel like this thing needs money, don't let money stop you from pursuing it. Make money available for it. Okay. There's so much mindless spending that happens in all our lives. So maybe instead of shopping, pursue this hobby. right? For now, let's just be content with this intention, because we're using the value of slowness here. Okay, so the first thing I would do, and by the way, this was inspired by the Page of Cups journaling prompt by Cecily Saylor's book Tower for Creative Spirits. Hey, Cecily. So, this is a prompt that was inspired by that. So, setting aside 15 to 20 minutes to write about what you would like to learn about with this subject. Is it something, like if it's dancing, for example, what are you curious about? Are you curious about what type of dance? Is it hip hop? Is it salsa? Is it break dancing? Is it twerking? Is it belly dancing? Is it something that you want to learn about, like the history of it, or are you interested in learning how to do it? Why are you interested in that? And how are you going to perhaps what's the word, honor the culture from which it came from? A lot of times we jump into like belly dancing or hip hop, and we don't understand where it came from. It's really important to take the time to kind of luxuriate in understanding what the history is, so that we can continue honoring the people that came before us, right? So this here is like setting that intention, writing about it, setting time aside to know what you want to learn. Okay, like how do you want to learn it? What do you want to learn it online? Do you want to learn in a community? What emotions can this new hobby or interest fulfill for you? I know with breakdancing, for example, it really helped me a lot with processing anger. Journaling at this point can really help you tease out these the creativity aspect of these four values that I shared, that I think are really needed right now: community, creativity, nature, and slowness. Obviously, spending time in nature, that's unrelated to what I'm saying now, but that goes without saying, that is medicine too. I think it's a cure all for everything. And then with this thing, adding community, is there something that, or is there someone that can teach you more about this? Is there someone who would like to geek out on this topic with you? Is there a friend of you, of like, do you have a good friend or a sibling that wants to come with you to try out a class? So, this is what I would be doing. Just a very practical, very simple thing to employ these four values to start curbing our consumerism. Okay. Um, Other practical tips would be putting things into your cart and not buying them immediately. I do that all the time. I don't hit purchase, I put things into my cart, even if I feel the impulse to just buy. I don't. Personally, I know people are gonna like be a little bit opposed to this, but I am a gift free person. As a rule, I barely ever exchange gifts or gift gifts. I really rarely ever do. My partner and I, we have this agreement, we don't do gifts. But maybe for you, gift giving is your love language. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you are, I would be more inclined to say maybe giving gift cards, or directly asking your friend or your sibling or your loved one what is it that they want, to eliminate waste. Okay, it eliminates waste, it eliminates awkwardness, so that things don't end up in landfill. So, to conclude this episode, I want to say a few things. The first is that emotional attunement is very underrated. So, always check in with yourself. Make that a habit, okay? Ask yourself, what are you feeling right now? What can you do right now to stop running away from your emotions and start meeting your emotional needs? At least most of the time. We can't do that 100%, okay? Sometimes our emotions are too big. And before buying something, ask yourself, what is this emotion? What is the emotion that you are trying to feel from having that thing? Maybe imagining having it first. See what emotions or desires it might fulfill and reassess from there. I'm not anti shopping. What I'm trying to encourage here is more mindful shopping. Obviously, shop local. I know sometimes it's not as easy, but shop local. And sometimes we think that we need to buy something, but what we really need is a good cry or a good laugh with our best friend. Community is medicine. But before I go, I'm going to add something real quick here. Please do not trauma dump on your friends. If you feel stuck in victimhood and in a blame narrative, there is no shame in that. We all have that in us. Okay, accept it and acknowledge it, and know that the victim archetype in all of us can alchemize into the warrior. Okay, the victim is that part of us that feels wronged, that needs to be heard, acknowledged, and validated. I don't believe in dumping our trauma on others. So, to do that, maybe hire a therapist or join a support group or ask a friend or your partner if they have emotional capacity to listen to you, making it clear both to you, to yourself, and to them that you are not expecting them to solve your problems or make your problems go away. The act of being heard by a loving, genuine person is deeply healing to these parts of us. So that's it, my friend. I hope you found a lot of value from today's episode. If you did, please share that on your Instagram and tag me at Nadine Zumot. That would just make me so happy. And just know that anger and sadness, they can be big, big emotions to unpack. Just because I was able to articulate how to process them in a simple way does not mean that unpacking them and processing them is easy. My books are open for new one-on-one clients. If this is something that you're interested in pursuing with me, if you want to, create a better relationship with money, then reach out and let's chat. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time on the Unfuck Your Money Show. Lots of love and take care.